A man sits in a prison interview and tells the camera he once turned down 6 figures from young Dolph. Then he tells the camera he later took less than $1,000 to help kill him. The clip spread fast, and the reaction online turned into open mockery of the math. Yo Gotti's name sits at the center of that math, because the money that allegedly moved through this whole chain traces back to people connected to his camp. So let's walk through exactly how a rejected 6-figure deal turned into an $800 payout, and why that number is now the punchline of Memphis rap's darkest story. The clip is 26 seconds long. Justin Johnson, known to the streets and to the courts as Straight Dropp, sits in a prison uniform and talks like he's recounting a business decision instead of a murder confession. He says young Dolph offered him $100,000 to sign a record deal, and he turned it down. He says he thought he was worth more than that. Justin Straight Dropp Johnson, convicted in the 2021 murder of young Dolph, claims he rejected a $100,000 record deal from the rapper, before later accepting just $800 to kill him. The interview surfaced on X in mid-July, posted by an account that films inside prisons, and the revelation came in a July 16 prison interview clip that has gone viral on X after being posted by My Mixtapees. In the footage, Johnson lays out the sequence like he's proud of the first half of the story. He states that Dolph offered him a recording contract, but he declined because he believed he was worth significantly more. That rejection didn't end things quietly. The rejection allegedly contributed to deteriorating relations, and as a result, this led to his eventual participation in the fatal shooting for a fraction of the original offer. What made the clip explode wasn't the murder. Everyone already knew about the murder. It was the contrast. The dramatic contrast between $100,000 and $800 has driven much of the viral response. A man who thought his talent was worth 6 figures ended up settling for less than a used car payment to end another man's life. Johnson's claim positions him as someone who rejected a legitimate opportunity, only to accept a fraction for a criminal act that cost him his freedom. The internet did not go easy on him. Within hours, the post had racked up massive engagement, and the post on X received over 638,000 views and 5,700 likes within hours. The comments came in waves, and reactions were predominantly critical, with users expressing disbelief at Johnson's decision-making. One user summed up the entire irony in a single line, writing that Johnson had passed up $100,000 and a chance to change his life for $800 to throw away his life, a comment that instantly became the top reply. Others went after his self-worth directly, questioning why he thought he deserved 6 figures in the first place. Someone fired back asking, "No sales history, no tour. What makes you think you're worth anything?" And a third commenter piled on, noting that with only 4K monthly listeners, he was lucky to even get the 100K to sign, treating the entire offer as charity Johnson had somehow managed to reject and still end up broke and in prison. Then the conversation pivoted to Gotti, because everybody watching this clip already knows the backstory, that the $800 wasn't just some random payday. It was allegedly the tail end of a bounty tied to Yo Gotti's camp. One reply put it bluntly, pointing out that meanwhile it would have cost Dolph $0 to stop antagonizing Gotti, a jab referencing the long-running feud between the two rappers. That single comment is why this clip didn't stay a random prison interview story. It dragged Gotti's name right back into the center of the conversation, months after his brother's alleged role in the murder had already been laid out in open court. Not everyone was mocking Johnson or dragging Gotti. Some defenders showed up for Dolph specifically, pointing to how he treated the people around him, with one commenter writing that Dolph took care of his artists, buying them Lambos, buying their mama's houses for working. That comment reframed the whole clip, not as a story about a killer's bad math, but as a reminder of exactly what Johnson threw away by turning down that deal in the first place. Whack 100, the manager known for jumping into rap controversies with zero filter, had already weighed in on the Gotti connection back when the murder trial first exposed the money trail. He didn't hold back, warning Gotti directly on a live stream. He told him to say his prayers, saying flatly, "Yo Gotti, say your prayers. NGAGA, you better say your prayers," laying out how the money that reportedly paid for Johnson's attorney connected directly back through Gotti's brother. Then there's Jay Fizzle, an artist signed to Dolph's own label Paper Route Empire, who used his music to go after both Johnson and Gotti at the same time. On his track Free STR8 Dropp, Fizzle raps that Justin Straight Dropp Johnson, one of the men charged with Dolph's 2021 murder, should face street justice instead of being in jail awaiting trial. He didn't stop at Johnson. He turned the song into a direct shot at Gotti too, rapping that people should tell that big head ass Angie got Gotti he a bitch. So within days of this prison clip surfacing, you had 3 completely different voices circling the same story. Anonymous X-users mocking Johnson's math. Whack 100's older warning about Gotti's exposure resurfacing in people's minds, and Jay Fizzle's diss track getting recirculated as the perfect soundtrack to the whole saga. All of them landing on the same number, $800. That's the figure everyone kept coming back to, because it made a tragedy sound almost cartoonish. 100,000 turned down, $800 taken. 1 life ended, 1 man locked up for the rest of his. To understand why that number carries so much weight and why Gotti's name keeps getting pulled into every retelling of it, you have to go back to where the $800 actually came from. A bounty that was allegedly 100 times bigger than whatever got paid out. The $800 figure didn't start as $800. It started as a much bigger promise, one that came out during the murder trial, almost a year before this prison clip ever surfaced. Cornelius Smith, one of the 2 men accused of pulling the trigger alongside Johnson, took the stand and laid out the entire financial structure of the plot in open court. According to his testimony, the operation was supposed to pay out real money to everyone involved. Smith added they planned to pay Govan $10,000 after the hit, while each gunman would take home $40,000. $40,000 each for the 2 shooters. $10,000 for the man accused of organizing it. That was the deal on paper. That was what Johnson and Smith allegedly believed they were signing up for when they agreed to go after Dolph. But the money never showed up the way it was promised. He claims he only received $800 of that promise before his January 2022 arrest. $800 split across 2 separate payments. He says he only received a total of $800 for the alleged hit. First through a $500 payment and a second of $300. $500, then $300 more. That's the entire financial reward for murdering a man in broad daylight, less than what most people spend on rent in a single month. The source of the original bounty, according to prosecutors, traced directly back to Gotti's inner circle. One of the men accused of killing rapper young Dolph corroborated the prosecution's claim that the brother of Yo Gotti allegedly had a $100,000 hit out to kill him in November 2021. That brother was Anthony Mims, known across Memphis as Big Juke. And according to the assistant district attorney handling the case, Shelby County Assistant District Attorney Paul Hagerman accused Gotti's late brother and CMG executive Big Juke of placing a $100,000 bounty on his brother's adversary, saying, "Big Juke, the person I told you about before, the number 2 guy at CMG, he's put out a hit, $100,000 to whoever kills Dolph." The prosecutor added that Big Juke had met with Justin and had met with Cornelius, and they thought they were ready to do it. So somewhere between $100,000 promised and $800 delivered, $99,200 simply vanished, at least according to what the men who pulled the trigger claim under oath. That gap is the entire reason this story keeps generating outrage every time it resurfaces. It's not just that a man died, it's that the people who allegedly carried it out got treated like they were disposable even by the standards of the crime itself. Smith's testimony added another layer that made the story even more unsettling. He said that after the murder, while he was sitting on almost nothing from the original bounty, someone connected to CMG stepped in to cover a much bigger bill, but not for him. Smith claimed he only received $800 up front, and later learned that Big Juke had paid his attorney $50,000 after the hit. $50,000 for a lawyer, $800 for the murder itself. The math only makes sense if you assume the actual priority was protecting the operation from unraveling in court, not rewarding the men who carried it out. This detail is exactly what pulled Yo Gotti's name into the legal exposure conversation, separate from his brother's alleged involvement. Smith testified directly that someone from CMG handled his legal fees, and Cornelius Smith, one of the men charged with young Dolph's murder, took the stand and alleged that someone from Yo Gotti's record label, Collective Music Group, retained an attorney to represent him following his arrest. And while Smith could not identify the person who paid for his lawyer, he was adamant that it was done by someone affiliated with CMG. Whack 100 zeroed in on exactly this detail when he issued his warning, walking through the logic like a prosecutor building a closing argument on a live stream. He broke down the exchange from the trial almost line by line, recounting how the questioning went. That NGA got up there and they said, "Didn't CMG pay for your attorney $50,000? He said, "Yeah, but they didn't give it to me." He said, "Yeah, Wax's point was simple. If the label paid for an attorney because someone killed Dolph, and the executive who arranged it was Gotti's own brother, that's not a distant connection. That's a direct line. Smith's motive for finally talking wasn't loyalty or leniency. He said flat out that he had nothing left to lose. Smith said, "I'm going to jail anyway. I can get it off my chest. It's my best out, to be honest, to be truthful. Why play with these folks? They already know." That's a man who understood his own sentence was locked in regardless of what he said next, which is part of why his testimony carried so much weight with the jury and with everyone following the case afterward. The bounty wasn't some abstract rumor floating around message boards before the trial. It came directly from courtroom testimony, cross-examined by defense attorneys, delivered under oath by a man who'd already pled guilty to his role in the killing. And every dollar amount in that testimony, the $100,000 promised, the $800 paid, the $50,000 spent protecting the men who did it, traces back to the same organization. CMG, Gotti's label, his brother's operation. To understand why that bounty existed at all, though, you have to go back further than the trial. You have to go back to a rivalry that started over a mixtape title and ended with bullets flying at a man buying his mother cookies. Long before there was a bounty, there was a beef, and it started with the word king. In February 2016, young Dolph released his debut album King of Memphis under his independent Paper Route Empire label, which peaked at number 49 on the Billboard 200, and other Memphis rappers, including Yo Gotti and Gotti-affiliated Black Youngsta, took offense at the album title. Gotti had spent years being called the king of the city. Dolph putting that word on his own album cover, independently, without a major label behind him, read like a direct challenge, whether he intended it that way or not. The tension traced back even further, to a business decision Dolph made years earlier. Back in 2014, Dolph told the Sway in the Morning Show that he turned down a record deal from Gotti, preferring to remain independent, and Gotti has never commented on this. Dolph built his entire identity around that refusal. He turned an offer to sign down and turned it into a brand, and every project he released afterward doubled as proof. He didn't need Gotti's label to succeed. Gotti stayed publicly quiet through most of the early tension, but the artists around him didn't. Black Youngsta led an armed group attempting to find young Dolph in Memphis and released a diss track, Shake Some, Young Dolph Diss, in response to the King of Memphis album title. Dolph brushed it off publicly at the time, but the streets clocked it. As the moment rap tension started turning into something with real stakes attached, the feud went quiet for a stretch, then reignited hard. In 2017, young Dolph released a diss track against Yo Gotti, titled Play With Yo Bitch, prompting Yo Gotti to release a response song. Dolph didn't just drop a song, he made a video for it featuring an actor playing Gotti, and the timing of what happened next turned the whole rivalry into something the entire industry was watching. 2 weeks later, in February 2017, young Dolph released a music video for Play With Yo Bitch, and the next day, his vehicle was the target of gunfire in Charlotte, North Carolina, while in town for a performance, with his car reportedly shot over 100 times, but outfitted with bulletproof panels, meaning no one was hurt. That shooting became the foundation of one of Dolph's biggest records, the bulletproof SUV, the 100 bullets, the survival. It all fed directly into his song 100 Shots, turning an assassination attempt into a badge of honor for his brand. But the violence didn't stop there. Later that same year, Dolph was shot again, this time in Los Angeles, and Gotti's name got attached to the incident almost immediately. The rap world exhaled a sigh of relief after hearing the news that the Los Angeles Police Department denied Yo Gotti as a person of interest in the shooting, clearing his name of all guilt, at least for the time being. Gotti tried at points to publicly distance himself from the entire narrative, insisting there was no real conflict between the two of them at all. Speaking on The Breakfast Club in 2017, he pushed back directly on the idea of a feud, saying, "Me and homie never had one argument, ever in life. We never touched each other ever in life. We never exchanged no money ever in life." He framed himself instead as someone trying to lift up Memphis rap as a whole, saying, "The fact is, I'm the biggest rapper from Memphis. I help a lot of rappers from Memphis. I don't know. I can't really think about what it is." But the pattern around him told a different story than his public statements did. Every time tension with Dolph spiked, someone connected to Gotti's camp ended up in handcuffs, or Dolph ended up getting shot at. though Gotti was initially taken in as a person of interest. Corey McClendon, one of Gotti's supposed associates, ended up actually being arrested following the Los Angeles shooting. Charges never stuck in that instance, and they never stuck after Black youngster was arrested over the Charlotte shooting either. But the pattern of Gotti's associates surfacing at every violent flashpoint in the feud became impossible for people watching from the outside to ignore. Dolph, for his part, never let the pressure change his business model. He kept building paper route empire, kept turning down offers, kept surviving attempts on his life, and kept rapping about all of it. He leaned into the independence angle so hard it became inseparable from his identity. And by the time he was killed in 2021, he'd built one of the most respected independent operations in hip-hop without ever signing to Gotti's label. That refusal, the same one from 2014, the same one that inspired an entire album title in 2016, is the thread prosecutors pulled on directly when they built their case years later. According to the lead prosecutor's opening statement, the entire motive traced back to that business relationship never happening. Prosecutor Paul Hagerman detailed the long-standing feud between Dolph's label, Paper Route Empire, and Gotti's CMG. And according to Hagerman, Dolph repeatedly declined lucrative offers from CMG to remain independent, which escalated tensions between the two labels. That's the rivalry sitting underneath the bounty, underneath the $800, underneath the prison clip everyone was mocking online months later. Two men from the same city, both building something real, and one of them ended up dead in front of a cookie shop because he refused to let the other claim him. By September, the case that had simmered since Dolph's death finally reached a courtroom, and the testimony that came out of it turned rumor into sworn record. Justin Johnson and Cornelius Smith Jr. were on trial for the November 2021 murder of young Dolph, who was shot while purchasing cookies for his mother at Makita's Cookies in Memphis. Smith's testimony walked the jury through the entire operation, from planning to execution. Smith claimed Govan told him and Johnson about Big Juke's $100,000 hit on Dolph, and the men allegedly both agreed to help carry out the plan which they had discussed over several weeks. He described the actual moment of the shooting with an emptiness that unsettled the courtroom. Asked about his thoughts in that instant, he said, "I wasn't feeling nothing at the time. I was just trying to get some money. I saw him standing by the window. I just got out of the car and started shooting." The detail that made the testimony genuinely disturbing wasn't the shooting itself, it was the date. He also revealed he and Johnson went ahead with the murder on the same day of his daughter's birthday. When defense counsel pressed him on it directly during cross-examination, asking pointedly whether he'd really gone and killed a man on his own child's birthday, Smith didn't deny it. He justified it instead, saying he was trying to make it rain for her, adding, "I wanted to make a beautiful day for her." The defense tried to dismantle Smith's credibility every chance they got, arguing he was simply trying to save his own skin by putting the blame on Johnson. Attorney Luke Evans told jurors not to trust anything Smith said, pointing out that surface-level evidence against his client wasn't conclusive on its own. Johnson maintained his innocence throughout, denying any involvement in the killing, despite the mounting testimony against him. The jury didn't buy it. On September 26, 2024, Justin Johnson was found guilty on all counts and was sentenced to life in prison for the murder charge. The additional charges stacked on top of the life sentence, with reports pointing to decades more added on for the conspiracy and firearm counts. Additional consecutive sentences were imposed for conspiracy and firearm counts, with reports citing approximately 35 additional years or totals reaching 50 years. Johnson's own reaction to the verdict, posted through his social media within hours of the sentencing coming down, showed no remorse and doubled down on street loyalty over any kind of accountability. The message read, "These end as taking criminal responsibility. I'm taking street responsibility, regardless. I'm forever the biggest they can throw away the keys before I ever eat the cheese." A post that read less like regret and more like a man trying to protect his reputation on the way to a cell he'd never leave. Smith's fate ran on a different track. He'd already implicated himself directly on the stand, and while his testimony helped convict Johnson, it also meant his own trial was still pending. Cornelius Smith and Hernandez Govan, the man accused of orchestrating the entire plot, were scheduled for separate proceedings after Johnson's verdict came down, both still facing the weight of first-degree murder and conspiracy charges hanging over them. Then, before either of those trials could conclude, the man at the center of the money trail was gone. Earlier this year, on January 13, Big Juke, 47, was fatally shot near the Perignon's restaurant, an event center in Memphis, with a second victim injured in the shooting. The shooting happened during a somber moment at a repast, a meal shared by the family and friends of a deceased person, typically after a funeral. The man prosecutors said had put $100,000 on Dolph's head was killed himself in Memphis without ever facing a courtroom for it. And no arrests have been made in this incident, as authorities say. They're still looking for answers. Govin's case dragged on the longest, eventually reaching a conclusion that split further from what the other verdicts had delivered. His trial date shifted multiple times before finally landing in the summer, and when it concluded, the outcome broke the pattern set by Johnson's conviction. He was acquitted on all charges on August 21, 2025. The man prosecutors described as the architect of the plot walked out of court a free man, while the two shooters who admitted their roles were left carrying the weight of a life sentence and pending charges, respectively. The courtroom had turned rumor into record. The bounty was real, according to sworn testimony. The $800 was real. The connection to CMG's legal spending was real. But justice, even after all of that, landed unevenly. One man locked away for life, one man testifying his way toward a lighter outcome, and one man walking free while the man who allegedly funded the whole operation was already dead and buried, his own killing unsolved. Memphis didn't let Dolph's story end in a courtroom. The city of Memphis approved street renaming for a street in the honor of Thornton, changed to Adolph Young Dolph Thornton Jr. His name is permanently attached to a piece of the city he refused to leave even after multiple attempts on his life. A tribute that outlasts every verdict and every appeal still working through the system. Johnson's conviction wasn't the final word either. He kept fighting it through the appeals process for over a year, and his conviction was upheld by the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals in March 2026. The life sentence stands. The decades stacked on top of it stand. Whatever legal paths remain for him are narrowing fast, and the man who once measured his worth against a $100,000 record deal is now measuring his life in appeals that keep getting rejected. Gotti himself was never charged in connection with any part of the case. Yo Gotti has not had any documented involvement in young Dolph's murder, despite his brother's alleged role, and the CMG legal fees Smith testified about under oath. No indictment ever followed the warnings WAC 100 issued on livestream, and no charges ever materialized from the testimony connecting CMG money to Johnson's defense attorney. The legal exposure people speculated about in the days after the trial simply never turned into anything prosecutors acted on. What did keep resurfacing again and again was that number, $800. It showed up in courtroom testimony in 2024. It showed up in comment sections and quote tweets after the verdict. And it showed up again in a prison interview clip that went viral, pulling the entire story back into the timeline for people who'd forgotten the details or never knew them at all. Every time it resurfaces, it does the same thing. It turns a murder into a punchline about bad math, and it drags Gotti's name back into the center of a story he's never been formally tied to in court, but has never fully escaped in public conversation either. Writers who covered the trial closely noted how familiar this pattern actually is in hip-hop history, pointing to other cases where the men who pulled triggers ended up shortchanged by the people who allegedly ordered the hits. Hitmen being shorted money is no new phenomenon, with Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, who has been charged in the murder of rapper Tupac Shakur in 1996, claiming for decades that a hit was placed, but he was never fully compensated. Dolph's case slots into that same grim tradition, a promise of six figures, a payout in the hundreds, and a body left behind that no amount of money was ever going to justify. Smith's own case remains unresolved in full public detail, still working through the system separately from Johnson's, while Govin walks free after his acquittal, having never been convicted for the role prosecutors said he played in organizing everything. And the man who allegedly started the whole chain by putting up the $100,000 in the first place isn't alive to answer for any of it. Gunned down in Memphis before his own case could ever reach a verdict. Straight Dropp's viral prison clip didn't add anything new to the legal record. It didn't reopen the case, and it didn't change a single sentence already handed down. What it did was remind everyone, all at once, exactly what the streets thought his life had been worth compared to what young Dolph's cost him. 100,000 rejected, 800 accepted. One rapper dead outside a cookie shop his mother used to send him to, and a name Yo Gotti's, that keeps getting pulled back into the center of the story every single time that number gets said out loud again. Young Dolph's killer said he turned down $100,000 offer to sign to him. Hip-hop vibe. Yo Gotti warned by Whack 100 after being implicated in Young Dolph's murder. Hip-hop DX. Paper Route Empire's J Fizzle disses Yo Gotti, Young Dolph's alleged killer, on new song, Hip-Hop DX. Young Dolph's accused killer claims Yo Gotti's record label paid his legal fees. Yahoo News. Young Dolph murder trial. Yo Gotti's brother had $100,000 hit out for rapper. Newsweek. Yo Gotti's brother Big Jook allegedly ordered $100,000 hit on Young Dolph. Express Tribune. Memphis rapper Young Dolph knew there was no love in the streets. Anscape. Here's what's next for the others charged in the murder of Memphis rapper Young Dolph. Local Memphis. Wild. One of Young Dolph's suspected killers says he received $800 and a letter after killing Young Dolph. World Star. Young Dolph killer reacts to life sentence. Rhymes with snitch. Day one of Young Dolph's murder trial gets heated. The morning hustle. Young Dolph murder suspect carried out hit because he needed money for daughter's birthday. Billboard. Young Dolph, Wikipedia. Young Dolph and Yo Gotti unpacking the Memphis beef. Hot new hip-hop. Young Dolph and Yo Gotti beef turns deadly in the streets. Raptology. Hot Memphis beef. A very extensive history of the nearly fatal feud between Young Dolph and Yo Gotti. Gossip. Young Dolph. What was rappers' beef with Yo Gotti, Black Youngsta, and Soulja Boy? National World. The Memphis Rap Wars, Part 1. How Young Dolph and Yo Gotti's feud changed Memphis hip-hop forever. Raptology. Young Dolph and Yo Gotti still love beef,